So max input threshold, as you can see here, is 100%, therefore being high. High here meaning that you have to press the thumbstick left or right more to get the maximum input, and of course the lower the number, closer to 0, then the less amount you have to push the stick to the left or to the right. But this is essentially irrelevant because of the aim acceleration at 0, which you can see on screen there, so let me explain. The aim acceleration comes into the equation whereby the higher the aim acceleration, the faster the movement speed is going to increase when you move to the left or to the right with your thumbstick, either of them. The lower you have it, as you can see, which I have on 0, 0 is going to essentially eliminate all acceleration and mean no matter how far you push your thumbsticks to the left or to the right, the speed is always going to be the same. This is why you're able to have a high 100% max input threshold on your thumbsticks, because the 0 acceleration basically just means that you've got an equal amount of speed, high or low, going left or right, no matter, or up or down, wherever you want to push your thumbsticks. So essentially, max input threshold is irrelevant as long as you have your aim acceleration on 0, which pretty much 99% of people should have. Moving on to the Axial Deadzone, as you can see here, I have got the default of 15%. In short, the Axial Deadzone it cancels out basically vertical or horizontal movement when you're pushing the thumbstick all the way in one direction, whether that's horizontal or vertical. So if you're basically turning all the way to the right and you've got your thumbstick all the way to the right, the higher that number is, the more assist you're going to have in terms of keeping that flat line when moving to the right or to the left, and preventing yourself from making your sight go upwards or downwards when all you want to do is turn to the side, and vice versa when you want to go up or down, stopping yourself from moving left or to the right. Now, I wouldn't class this as a high or a low value. It is the default value, and I would say the default value is the best. You want a low value, or I do at least, because I like that uniform equal aim of having 0 acceleration and, of course, having that low axial deadzone. But 15% is perfect because the majority of gunfights you are going to go into, are going to be at this chest to head height, and you're going to be aiming left or right horizontally rather than aiming up vertically towards a building, the majority of the time. So 15% is perfect, and a low value in this case if you want to consider that out of 100%. The third setting, which we're looking at here, is going to be center deadzone, probably one of the most important deadzone settings to look at. And you can see here I've got a medium value of 10%, which is 5% lower than the 15% default. Now, for this setting, it essentially means, again, how much the stick needs to be pushed to be activated. The higher this is, say if you put it on 100%, you probably got to push the thumbstick 50% of the way to the right or the left, again, or up or down, to have it actually start moving. Whereas if you put it to 0, then it's going to immediately move, probably if you breathe on it. Exaggerating as an example. Now, the benefit for players here is the lower the value you can get this, the more responsive and reactive, and I guess less input delay you will feel. But as we all know, every single person who watches this video has or will go and experience stick drift. On controllers, it just happens, and the lower the value you have of this center deadzone, the more likely it is that you're going to have to deal with it, and therefore your accuracy and gameplay quality and performance is going to drop the more stick drift you have, which is why I've gone for 10%, which is lower than the 15%, but higher than what most competitive players use, which is around 5 to 8%. If you've got loads of money and you can afford to buy new controllers every month or 2 months, then the lower the better. And moving on to the final setting, we have got the trigger deadzones, and this is essentially going to be how far you need to pull the triggers down to get them to react and have an input. Here you can see I've gone for 0%, therefore the lowest value possible. My advice for this, or rather my thinking for this in the past, was to have it at around 5 to 10%. My thinking, again, because of this, was that if you go and use really high fire rate weapons like a Type 2A, at those medium ranges where you want to burst fire or tap fire individual bullets, it would become impossible. And that's what I found when using a PS4 controller. However, on the PS5 controller at 0% on this trigger deadzone, you've still got probably about 3 to 5% of pulling the trigger down without anything happening, which is perfect because it gives you, you want to rest your fingers on the triggers to be able to react quickly. If you have it on 0 and you run the risk of accidentally firing off shots or aiming in just because you're resting your fingers on the triggers, 0% is therefore not worth it. But my advice here would be go 0 to 5%. On the PS5 controllers, 0% works for me. It's fine because you've got a little bit of a gap to push down before the 0% impact or input kicks in, which is therefore, is perfect. So overall, as you can see here, in terms of dead zones, whether high or low is the best, there is no definitive answer because the way that the percentages work, sometimes higher is the benefit and sometimes lower is the benefit. Ultimately, the ultimate answer is the more reactive you can get it, then the better, because your reaction times are going to improve and you're going to have a better chance of winning gunfights. However, you do not want to go so low with some of these settings that things such as stick drift will, impact your gameplay and your performance to the point where you're better off actually having slower reaction times with higher percentages instead. So that's my overall, view, input, and the exact settings which I use, which were put on screen. So again, rewind if you want to see them. Smash a like, leave a comment, and we'll see you with a special video very soon.
Everything I touch turn cold. Need no introduction cause they know Brit and Mo. I hit the lotto, my motto. Roll up gelato and throttle a couple models staccato who fucking brought up the